Okay, so we're going to be looking at patterns, and I've got the pattern for a 45, 45, 90 triangle. I just got it to the right here. And when I have a leg of x, and remember this is an isosceles right triangle, it's important that you keep that in mind. And I just multiply by x to the square root of 2. Why does this work? X squared plus x squared is equal to c squared. And this is 2x squared, if I use the Pythagorean theorem, is equal to c. If I take the square root, x comes out, and it's x to the square root of 2 is equal to c. It is completely a shortcut of the Pythagorean theorem. So now, how do I undo stuff? Well, remember, I multiply my x value by the square root of 2 to get my hypotenuse. Okay, and that's how I do it. I just go in that way. I multiply by the square root of 2. Now, to go back, let's do that a different color. To go back, I got to divide by a square root of 2. So I'll divide by the square root of 2. And remember, this is x is equal to the square root of 3, the square root of 2, and that's 1. And so x is equal to the square root of 3. Okay, now, our next problem. I'm doing the same thing, and am coming back, and I want to divide by the square root of 3. So x times the square root of 2 is equal to the square root of 3, so I've got to divide by the square root of 2 to get back, to get my value of x. So x is equal to the square root of 3 halves, or the square root of 1.5. I can pop that in my calculator. Now, for this next one, I go forward, and remember, x times the square root of 2 is equal to my value. And I suppose what I'm really referring to, let's do that a little bit better based on the information provided. According to my scale, I take this, multiply by the square root of 2 to get the hypotenuse. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to multiply by the square root of 2 to get to my value of x. Well, this is the square root of 16, which is the square root of 4, which is just 4 after I take its square root. Now, those are 45, 45, 90s that you had. This is a 30, 60, 90. In order for me to go from a 30, 60, 90, it really drives from the small side. So I have to identify the small side. And the small side times 2 is equal to the hypotenuse. Okay, so that's 2, the square root of 3. The small side to the leg, now this is a different deal, different color. The small side to go this way, I multiply by the square root of 3. And remember, the small side this way, I multiply by 2. So I multiply by the square root of 3. So it's a square root of 9, and it's 3 as I reduce. Now, same idea here. Again, I got small side, and I'm going to go this way. So I multiply by the square root of 3. Remember, if I go that way, multiply by 2. So I've got 3, and I'm going to the larger leg, times the square root of 3. And that is equal to my x value, and that's it. And it's all about this pattern. If you read the solutions and spend enough time to read the solutions of what's going on, they will have communicated you're multiplying by a pattern. Again, I take x to get the hypotenuse, multiply by 2. To get the longer leg, multiply by the square root of 3. I will find both of them here to make sure you get it. Okay, so if I take the small leg, multiply by 2, I get x, which is 8. But if I'm looking for, say, y, I take my small side times the square root of 3 is equal to y, and that's it. And here, I've got the square root of 3. Multiply by 2 to the square root of 3. Multiply by the square root of 3. square root of 3. Now, this is the fun one. This is a repeat problem that you did in yours that you had the solution for. Square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is equal to my x value, which is the square root of 9, and that is 3. Now, we haven't done anything that reverses it to find the small side given the leg or the hypotenuse. So now I can find the small side. I've got the hypotenuse, and I'm going to undo it. I got to divide by 2. So if I start out with the square root of 2, I divide by 2, and that is my small side. And we're going to call that y. Okay, now with that, to get to x, I take my y value and multiply by the square root of 3 to get to x. Well, I already know that. And so the square root of 2 times the square root of 3 is equal to 2. So this is the square root of 6 over 2, which equals x. Okay. Our next one, to get to the small side, to divide by 2. Okay. To get the small side, to divide by 2. So I have 5 divided by 2 is equal to x. So 2.5 is my short side. And my short side is 2.5. And if I was asked to find this, I'd just multiply by the square root of 3. So I divide by 2 to go back. Okay. Now, again, I've got the hypotenuse. Divide by 2. Everything's about this short side. So to get to y, I take my square root of 3, divide by 2. Well, to get to the longer side, I take my y, multiply by the square root of 3. So got to multiply by the square root of 3. Okay, my y value, so y, the square, excuse me, my y value, which is the square root of 3 over 2, multiplied by the square root of 3 is equal to x. So this is the square root of 9 divided by 2, which is 3 over 2, or 1.5. Okay? Now here, I've got a longer side. I got to go back. So I must divide by the square root of 3. How's that look? Because remember, x times the square root of 3 is equal to 4. So I must divide by the square root of 3. Now when I get to this, if I got a calculator, I can shove it in and give me decimals. But sometimes I have to have it in nicest form, and I cannot have a square root on the bottom. So I multiply by a form of 1, and I have 4 the square root of 3 over 3. Okay, so we've got that going on. And our next one, I have a hypotenuse I must find. So I've got to take this value, divide by the square root of 3. Okay, remember, if I was finding y, we'll call that y. I'd multiply it by the square root of 3 to have gotten 4. And now I just divide, and it's 4 the square root of 3. And remember, we made it all pretty by multiplying the top and bottom by the same value. And that value was decided by this denominator. So 4 the square root of 3 over 3. Now I'm going to double it. In order for me to get from here to here, I got to multiply by 2. Well, if I multiply my y value by 2, 4 the square root of 3 over 3, just multiplies up top, and 8 the square root of 3 over 3 is my answer for x. Okay, my last one, if I have this. Now this is really nice because it's it's factorable. It's got factors of 3. So if I knew x square root of 3 was 6, and I divided by the square root of 3, okay, I would get this value. Now I got to make it all pretty, but now keep in mind, this is 6 the square root of 3 over 3. Well, 6 divided by 3 is 2. 2 the square root of 3 is my answer. So that's my x value. And that's how we do it. Hopefully things are going well. I'll talk to you later.